Hello, I'm Harry King and I'm going to be doing a presentation for you. So here I'd have had a little sneak preview for you, which was of our up and coming single Fun in the Sun, but sadly we've had a bit of problem with that, so it's fine. I am Haz King, guitarist and singer of The Afternoon Sessions. We're an up and coming indie rock band from Carlisle. In terms of who's going to be involved with the project, we've got myself, Evan Morgan and James Henderson. In terms of what the project is going to entail, the main goal is to create an original EP. This will include also producing artwork and promotional imagery. We'll be making merchandise, we'll be doing digital distribution, we'll also be doing physical copies including CDs, and hopefully we're going to be getting our hands on getting it pressed to vinyl as well, which would be really interesting. And at the end of it all, we're going to be putting on a live performance as an EP launch too. So my main role in the project will be that of the producer. I have a lot of experience with this, from things like country pop to rap to hard rock, so in many styles, and I feel like I'd be really good for this project as well. And the DAW that I use is Logic Pro. At this point I did have some examples, but I can kind of give you an overview. So I've made 2 playlists with references that I'm going to use when mixing and mastering the EP. I've got one for specific song inspiration, more aesthetically, and then I've got one for more general production quality sonically across the EP. So the first one here is Naive by the Kooks, which is in the first one. And our song, Never Met Someone Like You, is a really choppy and rhythmic song, which I feel is alike to Naive, and I've always wanted to have a song like that and have it sounding really tight, so I think that would be a great idea to reference with that. In terms of the general production quality across it, I've got Don't Sit Down Because I Moved Your Chair by the Arctic Monkeys. They are a massive inspiration to us as it is, but this specific song's really big and boomy, and I'd love for the whole EP to sound like that. In terms of research, I've got 3 main research areas, these being how to effectively mic up, record and mix a drum kit, how to mix a specific song and then mix an EP as a whole, and on the end there I've got how to professionally make a good looking EP artwork. I've got a couple of examples here, so I'm going to be using a mixture of primary and secondary research. An example of my primary is I'm going to ask to sit in on a recording session at a local recording studio called the Music Farm in Egremont, and in terms of what I'll be doing while I'm there, I'll be taking notes and pictures and videos to make sure that I'm taking it all in properly, and I'll write semi-structured questions. It's important that I do semi-structured so that I'm getting the right information, but there's still room for them to say about their specific experiences as well. And this will give me some production tips and that kind of thing as well. Second example there is an interview with producer Mike Crosby, who has worked with the 1975 on their first album, and is specifically going to be talking in this article about the song Chocolate. And I really love the 1975 sound on this song, specifically the drum sound. It's really big and boomy, and this is something that I've always wanted to emulate, so I think I'd get some good tips from that. And on the end there I've got another secondary research, and that's tips on how to shoot an album sleeve. I feel like this will give us some good tips on how to go about doing this before we go in and actually execute it. We thought it'd be a really good idea to make a SWOT analysis. It'll help us identify the positives and where we could kind of boost ourselves a little bit in certain areas. I've given certain examples, so I've got a strength here, our competitive advantages. Now, I think our competitive advantages specifically are the ability to record remotely, which some artists don't have the ability to do, and we also have things like experience in being in pictures and videos and actually taking them ourselves. We all have experience in that, so that's an advantage that we have. Another example from weaknesses is succession. Now, there's always the possibility with a project that it doesn't succeed to the level of getting out there as you'd want, but there's always something that can be learned from it, and you just need to take it in a positive way, and there's always lessons to be learned, teaching you things for next time. In terms of opportunities, location and geographical is the one that I've picked out of the list. Reason being, there's not massive amounts of places that are suited for our sound in the local area, apart from local festivals like Kendal Calling and Solfest. But travelling further afield into bigger cities, there's bars and clubs and things like that that have specific sounds, and I feel like we'd be welcomed there. It gives us the chance to widen our audience and go further afield. And I've got a threat here, which is plan predictability, and obviously this is something that can happen on any project, but the slightest delay in any area could push the whole project back weeks, so that's something you've got to think about. You've also got to plan for every possible thing that could happen, really. You've got to keep in mind that there's things that could happen that push everything back, and you've got to have multiple ways of doing things to get it to the same standard if possible. Now we go on to planning and production. We've made a project timeline. As you can see, it's really easy to see how the project will hopefully plan out. It's easier to visualise it this way, so we thought it would be really beneficial to do so. It'll also keep us on track and motivated, keeping us ahead of deadlines. It's also got a section here, so that's recording and production, which is specifically my area. So I've set myself deadlines, but obviously this is subject to change. With that kind of thing, it can be really flexible as to whether it takes not even as long. So I know that by that day I need to have that done and keeping us on track. We also did a resources list. We thought this would be really good to plan ahead of time, make sure that we're organised, and it's a good thing to pack for every possibility. Again, anything could happen, so planning ahead of time will make sure that months ahead you'll be fine for any possibility. We've now made a list of practical skills. We thought that this would be beneficial as it identifies some stuff that we need to build upon and stuff that we already have, which is good. We've split them up into 3 groups there. We've got skills, knowledge and behavioural skills. So I've picked out a couple of those from each. Now here I did have a video, but I can basically sum it up anyways. So in terms of skills, we've got ensemble playing. This is something that we already have experience in, and obviously, as you'd have been able to see in this video, we already have great chemistry when we're playing on stage, and this is something that in a project you need to have for it to work properly. Another example there is production and recording experience. This is something that the 3 of us have to a certain extent, so we know that when we go into record, we're completely competent and there wouldn't be any issues. Then we've got knowledge. One of the biggest things that we picked out, especially when we were starting off as a band even, was the importance of a band's image, and we knew that it was something that we needed to discuss, because when we were getting together it was quite evident to see that we didn't look alike. We don't have style as a whole, so it was something that we needed to work on. Maybe as a commercial thing it's a big thing, it can go either way, but when we did a task with Paul, we were asked to do a mood board of different things that we found aesthetically pleasing. Now this one's mine, you can kind of see what I was going for there, and the other 2, they had completely different styles. It was evident, but it did help us realise one of our unique selling points, which was that we are all completely different, but for some reason when we all come together it's really harmonious, so it works well. And we're going to tie it all in with a summery vibe and our kind of iconic yellow. Another example there is marketing knowledge. Now this is something that we obviously don't have a lot of just coming into the industry, so things like this article could give us a lot of good tips before we actually go to release something properly. We've also been doing weekly calls with a girl called Olivia McQuillan, who Evan went to school with. She's currently doing music industry at ACM in Birmingham, I believe, and she's been giving us loads of tips and helping us out before we go to release something, making sure we're checking all the boxes and we're doing things properly, which has been really helpful. Now we move on to behavioural skills. Now, time management is something that we're all averaging, but obviously if we want to get the best results, we need to make sure that we're working on time and to the best of our ability. So again, things like this article could give us some great tips to do so. Another example is being flexible in your ideas. It's really annoying that we don't have the video here because it was really evident to see what we've done with this. But to sum it up, Evan had wrote a song called What She Doesn't Know Can't Hurt Her Anyway, and he was really cool enough for us to kind of write our own parts around that. He'd given us a solid layer to play around with, and we wrote our own bits, and it all just worked really well together, furthering my point from before that we all have different styles, but somehow it works. So it was really cool that he trusted our instincts with that. Next we'll move on to evaluation and reflection. Now this is a big part of a project, to make sure that you're getting all of the information and your experiences, you're actually gaining something from it in the end. So for our continual reflection, I'm going to be using Schoen's reflection in action, reflection on action method. I have done weekly diaries as shown before there, but it was just with the set questions, and I didn't think it gave as much detail as it could have done for me to actually get something out of it. It was just kind of stating what happened. So with this, you get both perspectives of actually being in the rehearsal and what's going on at the time, and then afterwards you do a little bit and you kind of step back and reevaluate what actually happened, which is really good. I will be mixing the text in with some videos and pictures of us doing practices and recording as well, so it'll be good to get a full picture. We will also be doing weekly meetings, which I'll come back to later. In terms of a summative evaluation, I will be using Gibbs's reflective cycle. Again, I have used an evaluation, like an essay at the end, but I didn't think I was getting as much out of it as possible. So again, I've done some research into different methods, and I found that Gibbs's reflective cycle was the best because it kind of highlights all the points that you need to actually get something out of the project. It sums up your experience the most, it brings your feelings into it, and how you're actually going to build upon it in the end. For feedback, I've decided to use a 3-tier system to make sure that we're getting the most out of the feedback. So step number 1, this is feedback from others that are actually working on the project, and what I was saying about meetings before, this is where it comes in. So after the Later with Carlisle College gig, we did a call to sum up how each of us individually worked and how we thought things could be better and that kind of thing. And we thought it was really beneficial. So to do this on a smaller scale within the weekly meetings, we think that would be a really good idea to make sure that we're on task and that kind of thing as well. On to the next one. Step number 2 is asking people from within the class. It might be a good idea to get some people's thoughts from people that are doing different types of FMPs. I know that Erin's doing a therapy FMP, so to get her thoughts on it would be completely out there, so that would be a really good thing to consider. So in terms of what we're going to be doing for that, I'm going to be doing interviews with open-ended questions and surveys with open-ended questions. You can see there that I've used SurveyMonkey. We used this for the Pop Through the Decades gig actually. I got feedback on certain aspects of that from it, and it was really good. It kept all of the information in one useful place, so I think I'd go about doing it in the same way. It's really important again that I use open-ended questions to make sure that I'm getting the specific information that is important, but still giving them free range to actually say what they thought. And the final step is to get feedback from people outside of the class. I think this is the most important part because it's unbiased and it's honest. If it wasn't, you're not really going to get anywhere. People would just say, oh yeah, it's nice, and that's not actually going to build from that. So we need honest opinions. In terms of do that, I'm going to put on little focus groups. This could be within calls or messenger groups, and we'll also be doing polls on our band's social media. So you've got a bit of more business and proper, and then you've got a general thing. So you're kind of covering all bases, which is what you need. And then I've got my bibliography with all of those there. Hope it was informative. Thank you.